the way how I like to start is from the beginning.
Okay.
Tell us, about Anna, where she's grown up, and how has been your beginning.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, so I'm from London, born and bred London, and it's always been my home. And I think probably that shaped me quite a lot with, I guess, who I am today, because I think for me, London's always been that center of a lot of things, like the culinary world, like the far worlds, but also kind of opportunity. So that was always very much my home. But I also think like London has this other side, whilst it's so inclusive for everybody, there is like a toughness to it, like whoever you are and wherever you're from. And there's a lot of competition. So you're always having to kind of fight for that place at the table. And, or whether it's, playing sport or whether it's this, there's so much competition. So I think that kind of shaped me to always want to like really push myself and kind of be the best in so many different ways. So I think that was like a big part of kind of growing up. But I think I'm very lucky that London has been my home, and it's been, it's so easy to be able to travel places and travel everywhere around the world. Um, but I think, I guess, how I got into hospitality was such like a different journey, because I never knew that the word really existed. It's not really, when I was growing up, it wasn't really part of that British culture. You kind of just worked in a bar to maybe fund something else or go travel or fund other things that you
When
want
did you
to
start
do.
to work in bars?
So I would say properly in 2010. But I say before that, I was kind of working in nightclubs. Okay. But it was never the straight path. Like when I was growing up, I wanted to be in the military, and I did all of my training from like 16 to I think 21 or so. And that,
Oh, this is a big thing.
but honestly, that was kind of like really what I wanted to be. And at 16 years old, we had an opportunity at school to kind of do like the CCF, which is like the kind of army for like younger kids when you're like 16 or 17. But that really shaped who I was. I was like the only girl doing it. And that kind of sparked something in me. Like, if all these boys could do it, why can't I? And it was met with a lot of kind of resistance. Like, why does she want to be in it? And you really had to kind of prove yourself to
Coconut, come here.
have
Sorry.
days.
Sorry, come here. Come here, annoying dog. So annoying, Sufa. He's like in between.
But that shaped a lot. But that's really what I wanted to do. And it was, for me, it was about when they ask you, like, why do you want to be part of it? Why do you want to be in the army? So there's a couple of questions they ask. They ask, like, why do you want to be in? And they ask, like, are you prepared to die? Which is such a morbid question, but it's the reality of it. And for me, it was, I just want to be able to make a difference and make a difference to people around you and have that impact. And that impact, I'll come back a little bit later, because there's like this kind of full circle link. Um, and I was doing all of my training. I was sponsored by the Royal Artillery and got a place at Sandhurst, which is the military school in the UK, and started my training there. And I had something called Graves' disease, which is a thyroid endocrine system, and it basically releases too much like thyroxine into your body, but has like a really adverse effects on your body. And that's where they changed the medical laws within the British Army, and I wasn't able to continue with my training. So it was this very like bittersweet moment. And I remember we were waiting for the results, and I had this letter. And they always say, the army, like, if you get like a small letter through the post, it's not ever good news. And I just knew what it was. And I remember sitting actually in Cafe Bohem in Soho with my friends. I was just like, I just know this is like the end of that journey. And obviously, you don't think when you're young, it's the beginning of the next one, because you're very like flooded by emotion when you're younger, more so. Um, but yeah, when obviously that was the point where I kind of just started working in bars, I was handing out flyers for this like terrible bar in Leicester Square. And then somebody was like, come and work at my nightclub. And I was like, okay.
That are the bars that forge you. They
Yeah.
make you.
But I tell you, there is nothing more humbling and soul destroying than standing in Leicester Square, handing out flyers and people just taking them and like tearing it up in your face. And I was like, oh my God.
We all been there. We all been there.
Yeah, but it was kind of, but every day I still went, and every day I still showed up and still did this horrible thing. And then one day someone was like, do you want to come and work in this nightclub? And I was like, okay. And just slowly kind of just started working in nightclubs. I was working a day job at the time in PR. Again, didn't really know what PR was, just was like, that looks cool. They get to go to cool parties. But there was some kind of energy and something that I liked about working in that nightlife.
What it was that part that you liked
Yeah.
there?
I don't know, I remember being in this nightclub in Soho on Kingly Street, and I remember just sitting, like, with my friends, and this guy walked in who obviously worked at the club, and he kind of transformed the room within a matter of moments. Like, the lighting suddenly went down, the music was up, it was those tiny little bits of curation, and that was, like, something that stuck in my head. Like, I can't if I saw this guy today, I'd recognize him, but I can't remember his name or where he was from, but it was just something that kind of
Click.
clicked, and then I was like, "Okay, that's cool." But didn't again, you don't really understand that that's hospitality. You're like,
Yes.
"That's just a nightclub."
So,
And it wasn't until I started working at the Savoy in 2010, and I joined as a host in the American bar.
do you think that has been your key experience and the turning point for you?
I think so. I think it was probably about 6 months after we started, because I didn't know anyone in the industry. I didn't like, I was working with some incredible people, people like Eric, Salim Khoury, who was one of the previous head bartenders of the American bar. He was training me. I didn't have that understanding, that context of who these people who these people were. Like, I didn't know that what Bacardi legacy was that Eric had just won, and everybody was like, I didn't understand that bartenders were kind of, seen as like role models or celebrities. Yeah, I was just really,
I think it was just the beginning.
it,
Nobody knew it,
yeah,
that it would be that.
yeah, and it was, I was just drinking. I was very happy drinking vodka sodas, very happy, or vodka cranberry. I didn't really understand, and suddenly you're thrown. And I think maybe that was a good thing, the naivety of going to work somewhere as iconic as the American bar that I didn't know.
You were really genuine and, whatever it was kind of was like, wow.
I
Yes.
was, I don't, I was just like, I was just doing my thing. They're like, you just need to be nice to people, you need to manage. And because I'd worked on the doors of nightclubs, I knew how to manage a guest list and a queue. So I kind of was doing okay. And people were like, yeah, you're doing a good job. And I was like, okay, cool. Like, I just didn't have a clipboard and I wasn't allowed to wear a fur coat. like, you know. So looking back, it was a very surreal experience. But at the time, it slowly started to click. And I think maybe about 6 months into being there, I just remember getting this feeling, and it doesn't happen. I don't think it happens often to a lot of people, but that feeling that you get when you know that you're just meant to be there. So whether that's with somebody, you meet somebody, you're like, that's the person I'm meant to be with, or you're in a job and you're like, I'm meant to be here, or I'm meant to be doing this, like this is my life path. And I got that moment. And I think it was the second time that I had that in my life. The first one being when I was past the selection for in the military. So those are like, and maybe it's happened one more time, I think, so far, but it was just those key things that you're like, I'm meant to be here. This is what I'm meant to be doing. So
You are in the space where you meant to be,
yeah, that's
right?
sort of like,
Has been any role model in your life, in this specific, situation that you felt like, I would like to be like her, or I would like to be like him, or anything that really inspired you?
yeah, I find that question really hard to answer about role models
Okay.
because my like really, and I was asking, I could have said to somebody on the way here, I was just like, I don't know how to answer that because there wasn't one specific person, but I think there was multiple people and their work and what they did that kind of inspired me to either research it a little bit more into that or to could do something myself. So it's hard to say one person. I'd love to be able to, because I see people, I go to bar shows and events and, you see, people essentially having these fan clubs for people. And I always ask like, why is this person your role? I find it really interesting how people get to that role model because I never really either knew about it or had that. It was very much like based on seeing somebody do something successful and finding out like why and how they got there. But it was very much about that end result. So even now, today, when someone's like, do you have role models? I find it really hard. I don't know how to answer that
I see. I see.
because I look for inspiration in so many different ways. One of the biggest things actually that I will say when in lockdown, I was doing, and then again, very serendipitously, fell into volunteering for this homeless organization. Again, wasn't meant to be doing this. That wasn't my path. I had no kind of link to it before. But in lockdowns, we all were kind of just going out, maybe cycling or walking around. And I just remember cycling down the street and seeing this queue of people. And I was like, I stopped for some reason. I was like, oh, what is this? They were like, oh, well, this used to be a place where the homeless could come and eat and drink and have some, obviously have some like hot drinks and everything. And I was like, oh, wow, that's amazing. They were like, but obviously, COVID, we can't let people inside. But they were like, we're looking for volunteers if you want to help. And I was like, okay, sure. Something I don't know how, but somehow my past sort of led me to doing that and then to be part of something bigger. And this organization called Under One Sky, it's really changed my perspective of what hospitality was. Because when you're delivering hospitality in a really beautiful, say, 5-star hotel, I'm not saying it's always easy, but it is easy. And the question that came to me and just really inspired me was like, can you still deliver the same level of hospitality on the streets to homeless people, to people that have gone through really traumatic experiences, been affected by, loss of people in their life, alcohol, drugs, just
with mental illness or issues.
so many things. And it was just, I remember the guy that founded it, he's a really profound man, and this is something he's incredibly inspiring, called Mikhail. And he could have said, in order to have impact, you need to understand what people value. And it was just like, it stuck with me. And it's just something I say to myself, like, what do these people value? And when you understand it, and it might just be as simple as like, you remember how many sugars they like in their tea. Or it might be just something so small. But it really stuck with me. Like, if you can deliver this level of service in, the places that I've worked before, can you take that and still deliver that same amount of compassion when those people really cannot give you anything? Like, truly.
Yes.
Whereas maybe you go into, and I'm sure you've experienced where you go into a really, say an industry-led place and you get, maybe something extra, you get given some incredible treatment, or you've done that to somebody else and you've done that because maybe they are a journalist or maybe they are, somebody of note or whatever. Can you still do that to people that really,
Yes.
and that was another key moment where I was like, this is something that I'm meant to be doing in my life. So I think those the 3 moments I've spoken about, like, I'm meant to be doing that and meant to be here. But yeah,
It's impressive because I know the way how you express it. It makes me think about the fact that giving back to your community
yeah,
in a different ways. Like be in hospitality, as you said, you're serving great people, but
Yeah.
sometimes it's just casual. There is something that you can do. It will change someone feeling in that specific moment. Without thinking like what you're gonna get back or whatever. It's just meant to be like that.
yeah,
And I think it's my thoughts after what you've been telling me that your inspiration, it comes out from your curiosity, the way how you see things, like everything you look around. My point.
yeah,
That I just wanted to share, and it's so beautiful. I think it's really meaningful what you just said. And this is actually lead me to the following question, which is related to, every path has their own obstacle.
yeah.
Has been any obstacle in your working path or journey until now in your career that actually he made it better? The fact that it's been such a negative thing happening, he made it even a blessing
Yeah.
on the top of that.
Yeah, I think that's, look,
And if you have a specific scenario, if we can share it.
yeah, I think that there's always going to be obstacles. I think it's, and I think perception and perspective are two really important things to kind of look at. I think over the years, I mean, look, there's been multiple mistakes that I've made, like some of them really small, some of them huge. I think some of the biggest challenges that I faced was like within myself, like being able to not necessarily have that confidence, but that trust in yourself to make those right decisions. And I think that's quite hard sometimes to overcome because nobody gives you like a manual to be like
Yourself.
And I think that's the really hard thing, especially when you can feel quite lost, again, because there's no manual for that. And you're like, what do I do? Like, how do I communicate that I'm feeling like this? Because, and luckily in the last, I would say, especially since COVID, people have been more open about talking about feelings, about going to therapy, about, all of these things. But 10, 15 years ago, that wasn't part of your narrative. It just wasn't. It wasn't accessible. So I think kind of, I had to become very strong in myself if I wanted to do what I did. I look back now and and I go, and I never kind of, you forget that actually life can be quite hard. And actually that when you accept that life can be hard, instead of being surprised when it is, then actually you can deal with things much better. And actually, those really tough times, sort of like mentally, I think, when you go through these difficult times, it can impact you physically as well. Your body can hold like a lot of trauma, and it stores itself in different sort of ways. Um, but I think it was, those sorts of moments. I think there was a time when I think it was kind of coming out of lockdown, and Celebrate Her was just, which obviously is a community for women, it had just started getting a lot of traction and people were wanting to really be involved in it. And I had so much support on one hand from so many people. And then the other side, I just had so many trolls online. Like, some of the stuff that they were saying to me was horrific. And it was at the time there was a big media attention on a young girl that had been murdered by a policeman. And we were doing a big campaign around that about safety. And I got so many awful, awful messages from people within the industry, people that I didn't know. They were not only messaging like on the Celebrate Her page, but my personal page, like my best friend's page. And I can't even repeat some of the things. And all that we were trying to do is bring a community of women together to try and raise awareness, to try and get men involved in the conversation and support other communities with this. And I just remember like being at home on my own and being like, what if they find out where I live? Like, I was scared.
You
And I
have
know,
that feeling of like, the things it got over
yeah,
the social media. Now you can get into reality
I
and you
have
felt
that. Yeah. And
touched by it.
being scared is not like, oh, I'm so scared of like going to this date, or like so scared of this job interview. Is that really like deep, deep feeling inside where you're like, and I just remember being like, even though I had so many amazing people around me and so many amazing friends, that was a really like difficult point. And there was some points where I was like, I'm just going to shut the WhatsApp group down. I'm going to shut all of this down. I'm just going to take myself off social media. I'm just not going to do this anymore. Because it was just really like, some of the stuff like was really horrific. And I kept all the screenshots of this, and it's now like in like an archive folder because I kept going back and looking at it. But that was a really tough kind of point. And I'm really, really glad now when I look back, and I don't talk about this often because nobody really asks me about the downside to Celebrate Her because it's in a very positive light. And nobody also really asked me why that was really set up. And there's a backstory to that as well. But I'm glad that I didn't give up on it because since, next year will be 5 years of the platform being there. Again, it wasn't ever meant to be anything more than a group of women. But now there's like 400 people worldwide represented on every continent. And it's going to grow. It's going to continue to, we've kind of redefined a lot of what we want to do with that. And we've got like a small team of people now. And everybody does it because they want to be part of it. But I'm really glad I didn't give up then and give up. But that's, the internet and social media can be a wonderful thing, but it can also, there is a very, very dark side of it. And I can see how some people can really slip it very quickly, go down into a very, very dark place because of that as well. And that I just experienced a very, very small proportion of it.
That's like unbelievable, and I feel sorry I didn't know that side, and whatever you had to live, and sometimes for things you need to really work hard,
Yeah.
and sometimes there is everything against you, and you need to try to prove you're right in certain ways, and I think you did. So that's that's beautiful. Keep up.
Yeah, I mean, not to be so negative because there's so many positive things, but I think it's like life is difficult, but I think going through these difficult times, and not to sound sort of preachy, but it genuinely, like the bad things and everything make you really kind of hone in on what you want and what the good things are and what works for you. But I'd say to anybody, like, don't go through the bad times. Sometimes you just got to go through it, because that is sometimes the way to get to the really, really, really good things.
Absolutely, absolutely. I always post probably certain quotes around. But the other day, like I was thinking like, what I'm about to do is so bloody hard, and it's so
Yeah.
hard, and it feels like hell. And then and I'm like, but in the end, it will be heaven.
Yeah.
So the path to the heaven, it needs to be hell.
Yeah, but that's like exercise. We were talking about that earlier. It's sometimes I'm just like, I literally hate I
To do things.
I hate it. But then you're like, okay, cool. I've done like the hardest thing I'm going to do that day, and now I can do other things. And I think, like
Yeah,
we were saying earlier, there's something, I think it's not just about the physical things that exercise gives you. I
it's
think
the
it's the mental
mental.
thing, and I think
Oh,
it's so important in this industry where you are surrounded by late nights and so many, a lot of noise and alcohol, and it's nice to be able to have that balance as well.
yes. I think just you pick one of the topic, and I will kick in with the
Okay.
question is related exactly to that. How difficult is for you, or how simple it could be for you, the balancing between living the hospitality
Yeah.
100% at this high level, and not follow into the drain
Yeah.
of just drinking and go party, but have
Yeah.
a goal, a fixed goal,
Yeah.
because this is like a small percentage of our industry, right?
It is.
I wish it could be more, and I hope this podcast inspire more people to be more focused. Yeah.
Yeah.
But how do you manage that, the
Okay.
balance?
So this has only been like a really recent thing that I've been able to manage it, because I'm a very, with my emotions, with who I am, I'm quite an extreme person. So if I was going out, it would be all out. If I was staying in, there was no kind of, it was very rare that there was a halfway point where I go, let's have a few drinks, then go home. It would just never happen. And it wasn't until this summer, it wasn't really until maybe June, July, that I don't know really what it was, but it was something. And I finally started using my gym membership. So I've had this gym membership for years. I pay it every month, and I just like I would go and like get ready for a night out, and straighten my hair and like, leave my stuff in the locker and go out. But what somehow this year, and it just got to a point like it wasn't really anything. It was just accumulation of things. But I just started, and I found something that I really, really loved doing at the gym, which was like reformer Pilates, which I know is like really basic, but it's something that made it like click inside me. And again, my kind of quite extreme personality, I just became really like, I really love this. I really want to do it.
Addicted.
Addicted to it. But then that led me then to being like, actually, I want to eat better. I want to eat like whole foods. I want to eat more clean. I want to eat like, higher protein things. And like, honestly, really, really slowly, this has genuinely changed my life. Like, even when I look at like the results on like I don't think I was ever fat or anything before, but when I look back, I've dropped maybe in the last kind of like 4.5 months, about 8 kilograms. And that was just, again, when I talk about your body storing, whether it's trauma or whether it's something. But I see my energy levels. Like, I don't want to drink as much as I do, because I can't do the things I want to do next day. And the positive effect it's had on running my business has been huge. But honestly, it's taken me years to get to this point where I felt comfortable in my body and a little uncomfortable with who I am. So I don't think it's easy to find this balance. And I think the point of me telling the story is, you've just got to find that one thing. And that one thing is going to lead you on to doing other things. And for me, that gym membership is the best investment. And and it's the journey's, for me, it's like the journey's only just begun, and I want to continue. But I do think that balance is so important, because that has that knock-on effect into all elements of your life. And I think even just, mentally, physically, and whether you want those things for professional reasons or personal reasons, or, you know, whatever it is, I think it's just going to help. But it is hard. It's not, honestly, it's not easy. It's really, really not easy. But
we had
a start.
I'm talking because I'm including myself into this because
You do so much.
I'm so addicted. You know, I'm training twice a day. I do between 8 to 10 training a week.
Yeah.
And I feel it's so essential. It's part of my day, and I wanted to be like that till the last day of my life. You know, I wanted to be like this. But as you said, there is a turning point, and that turning point,
Yeah.
in my scenario, for example, is like you need to touch, you know, the lowest level
Yeah.
of yourself in certain side that you're like, okay, from now on, I have to only look up because there is no more to look down. I mean, lower than this it can be.
Yeah.
And then, as you said, you start to see those little, I would say, bricks. You build it day by day, and you start to see that things gets better all over, not just business, like even with people and family and, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
We have to think that working in an hospitality is great. It's wonderful. It's a lifestyle.
Yeah.
But this, it doesn't mean that it has to be 250% of our time.
Yeah.
You know, there is some other times you need to dedicate it and come back with more energy to come out with so many creative things, right? I feel it like this. I feel it like this. And what you said, it really inspired me to say what I said just now.
I think it also depends what you want as well. You've got, and again, it's not easy to know what you want.
Is that sometimes alcohol, I think, is unfocus you. You know, like, you know, when your camera is not focused, you see things, but it's not clear.
Yeah.
And the alcohol does that. And sometimes it's like, I have alcohol when I'm focused. I know I've written my plan. So if I drink and tomorrow I go back to read it, I have it written, you know. Otherwise you forget bits and pieces.
I think 100%. And I think it's like, for me, it was always like the easier option than not, you know? And I kind of said to myself, I never want to get to a point where I can't have a drink for the rest of my life. And not saying that I was getting to that point, but it would compromise what I wanted to do and what I wanted to achieve. And I kind of said to myself, like, if I want to be, you know, here and I want to, you know, do this or get these clients, I just can't. So it was very much that kind of breaking point where I was like, I can carry on and I can just be myself in my business. I can just do this, or I can make changes and hire people and hire a team and grow. Because for me, you know, what I want, you know, what we're doing in my business, we're building an incredible team of essentially these amazing freelancers, full-time freelancers. But and the reason why we're doing that instead of going down the traditional hiring sort of method is because I want everybody to have the flexibility to do what they want with life. And I want their participation with working within our business to benefit them. So I don't want people to be like, oh, you know, have things in their contract where they're like, well, I can't go and work with this person, or I can't take holiday, or I can't go and work abroad. I don't want to stop anybody doing what they want to do. I only want so it's kind of quite a new business model. Again, I don't know how it's going to work, but we're figuring it out. And we've hired like 3 people this year, and it's kind of working, I hope, you know.
Yes. What you are saying right now, actually, as you probably know, we had other chat with other personality, and we realized the power of an ecosystem.
Yeah.
So sounds like an ecosystem. It's not a hierarchy.
Yeah.
So everyone does what they're good at, and they have their own freedom in certain aspects. But as long we get the things done and you're good at it, I mean, that's what I understood from what you were telling me, and I think it's super key, and it's the way to go, in my opinion. I do really similar thing.
Yeah.
All collaborators and people that really want to be there. Who doesn't care? Okay, no problem.
Yeah.
There's no space, maybe.
No, for sure. I think it's building up that trust for people. And I think I would always choose somebody that I trust over high performance. Because I don't know if you've ever seen this model. It's like from the Marines. It's like high trust, high performance, you know. So it's people use it on their podcast all the time. And I was just like, but this is so true. Like, you need to work with people that you trust. More, like, everything else can be figured out, you know? But people that you trust are going to be those people when you really need them, that are going to be there professionally and personally.
Yeah.
And I think that's so important within hospitality, because it's a people industry.
How do you think the hospitality philosophy changed over time for you? Like, since you started nightclubs, then you move and work in such a super high standard places as Savoy, Now you're running your own company and helping, brands to get the things
Yeah.
together out there. How do you think about the philosophy of hospitality?
I mean, it's changed so much. Like like I said, like I didn't even know what the word hospitality really was. And then suddenly it's this whole world, and you're constantly evolving and learning. And I think it's the people that, over the time you look at it from like a service perspective as well, that you look at it maybe, as managing people, like how does that work? And then to a business owner. But I think the core fundamentals are still there. And I don't think we should ever overcomplicate what hospitality is, It is about really what you can do for other people. It's that kindness, it's that empathy, it's that understanding. And I genuinely think if more people either worked in hospitality or were trained in hospitality, their businesses will be better. I recently did this talk at this law firm, and it was so interesting to see the questions that they were asking. And it was like, how do we make our spaces more hospitable? How do we deal with clients that are coming in with, trauma? Because realistically, nobody really deals with a lawyer for good news, maybe. I don't know.
Even when there is an heritage, apartment, but
Yeah, but nobody willingly goes to a lawyer and be like, here's like £600 an hour, right? Like,
I know.
yeah. So it was really interesting to hear their questions and to hear them talk about their office spaces and to hear them talk about like, well, what language do we use? Like, how do we get this point across? And I think that's the evolution. Like, the more you're involved with hospitality, the better you get with dealing with the challenges and the better you'll get at reading people. And I think that's so key, whether the different iterations of my life have changed, and they will continue to do so. But I think the fundamentals are there, and it's those feelings. It's that I think what we sometimes forget to do is look at like our gut instinct and our, that feeling that you just get that something that you need to do something. You don't know why, but you do it anyway. Or that feeling that something's wrong and you're like, that table or that person there's something quite off with them. So I'm gonna approach it in a different way. So I think whilst a lot has changed, a lot of external factors, I still think those key innate things, and that is genuinely those feelings that you get with people will determine how you behave with those people. And I think it's like you need to just sometimes, I think, refocus and just rethink, just take a few moments just to rethink sometimes. But yeah, it's a really, now talking about it, it's easy to forget really what hospitality is. I also think, it's not just about the people that walk it, it's the people that you work with, your teams as well.
It's so essential.
Yeah.
And talking about team, it comes to my head this is you've been mentoring quite a lot of people in our industry since you started. I mean, you had quite a lot of experiences mentoring. What it means mentoring for you, and who has been your mentor?
Yeah.
If there has been,
Yeah.
and what is your approach to that?
So I think I don't think I would ever go out and say I'm a mentor, but I do have long-standing relationships with people that are very, very organic, and I think mentoring could be different. It could be just somebody feeling that they can send like a WhatsApp message to you to be like, hey, what do you think about this? Or can I just sound check? It could be somebody asking for contact. It could be it's so many different things. I've never ever formalized it, and I've never gone, oh yeah, I'm a mentor, or let's do mentor sessions with me, because that's not who I am. But there's so many people, and I've been so lucky when I look back at the teams that I've been being able to be part of and seeing where those people are now and seeing how they've grown and opened up their own bars or done so well or opened up their own businesses or tried something completely new. And we still have this wonderful relationship. And it's just like, I'm so proud of people. And it's just so cool. And then suddenly when people have different iterations of your career, I'm like, why don't I call this person? Because they could do this for this event that I'm doing. And it's very full circle. Um, I was very lucky that I had some really strong mentors when I started in at the Savoy. So Daniel Bernreuther was the manager. You know him. He was the manager of the American Bar at the time. He's now hotel manager of Glen Eagles. And I couldn't wish for something better for my career, because he was very like harsh with me in a good way. And he wasn't giving me what I wanted, which was just like all fun and games. So like chatting at the host, he gave me what I needed, which was very like boundaries. He gave me that kind of structure that I
The
needed.
German.
Yeah, but I needed that. And
Yeah.
through this day, we might not speak every every week or every day or every month, but there'll be the message to be like, just checking in this. I mean, he saw me going through like every time somebody like broke up with me or didn't text me back, I'd be like, I don't know what to do. And he'd be like, okay, this is what you, but he saw so many difference in my lives. And I think that's so, to have that long standing relationship with somebody is so key. But yeah, some of my biggest, like when people go to me, what are your biggest success stories? And it's not any of the awards. I mean, that's really nice and it's definitely helped my career, but it's been seeing the people that you worked with go on to be great and even most of the time better than you are. And that's so cool to see. And I miss being part of like that team, those teams. Yeah.
When you say it, you feel emotional. Like
I feel
it's
emotional, yeah.
it's so beautiful. And usually, as you said, like in many podcasts and other places, they always talk about success. But what if we talk about failures?
Yeah.
Like what one of the biggest failure that ever happened to you, if you want to mention it, if you feel there is any failure,
Yeah.
and how did you manage? And the thing that it comes to my head is has been any failure that actually made a really good turning point into your career or in your life,
Yeah.
so that has been a blessing.
Yeah. I think, look, I mean, I think some of the more recent failures had just been setting up my business because for the first year, again, I never want, I was never like, I'm going to be a consultant because I felt, still now, and I would never say, I feel the words were really overused as well because I never wanted just go make drinks in one bar one day, then go make a menu in another bar. That wasn't me. But what I wanted to do was set up a kind of 360 business where it's commercial and creative strategy. Um, but one of the biggest things the first year, I didn't know what I was doing. And I was kind of too proud to ask for help because I was like, oh no, if I ask for help, then people will think that I don't know it.
Bartender DNA, we never ask help.
Yeah, but it was,
In a way.
I should know better. And it was, so the thing, I really struggle with the financial side of a business. So I was earning this money and I was like having the time of my life. I was going on holiday. I was, and just having so much fun. And suddenly you're like, oh no, you need to pay VAT 4 times a year. You need to pay tax. And I was like, oh, how much tax? They're like, okay, you need to get an accountant. And my accountant slapped me with this bill. And I was like, when do I need to pay this? And they were like, oh, like next month. And I just was like, I, I can't do that. And that was one of the biggest things. And I kick myself now because I should have known better, but I didn't. I didn't ask the questions that I should have asked. I was old enough and I am old enough too. I should have asked that. But again, it's easier to take the easy option and think it will all work out. And whilst we all say life will always work out, yeah, but you can help it. You can actually put the effort in to make sure it works out in the way that you want to work it out. So that was a huge learning thing for my business, to get your financial things in order. I, since then, have invested in a PA, in an accountant, purely for this reason, to keep on top of that, because it's not my strength. My strengths are not dealing with that admin side of the business. But that was big. And I would tell anyone now that's starting your own business, the thing that you're going to lose sleep over is money. And if you do not set yourself up for success with your clients from the beginning about putting in proper contracts, payment terms, there are some things where I have gone to bed every single night thinking about how am I going to pay people? How am I going to pay my mortgage? And waking up thinking the same. And it's not because I wasn't earning good money, because the business on paper is successful, but I wasn't managing it properly. And that was the biggest thing. Like, you can have everything going for you. You can have 10 clients all paying 20 grand each. But if no one's paying you, you don't have cash flow. You don't have cash flow, you can't do anything. And that, honestly, if you speak to like my friends who will listen to this, they will go, yeah, I know exactly what she's talking about, because that's what I've kind of spoken about the last couple of months, when it was all going on. And it takes time. Once you get into that kind of ditch a little bit, it takes much more time to get out of it than it would from the beginning, to be savvy about that. And that would be my biggest advice to anyone, is just to not mess around with the financial side of anything.
Don't mess around with the tax, man.
Yeah.
Don't mess around with the tax, man. What you just said is, it's funny, but has been
Resonates with a lot of people.
my God, I don't want to think about
Yeah.
it. when the HRMC calls you up and they say, "Hey, Mr. Luca, we got this."
Yeah.
that," and you're like, "All right,
Yeah.
when? Tomorrow." You're,
Yeah.
okay, okay,
Yeah.
I can do it.
Yeah.
Okay, well, what can I say? Um, Out of all of this, I see you're really passionate about what you're doing and really emotional. You really feel it, this, and it's beautiful. And it comes to my head is, what would you like to leave to this industry for the future generation? On the top of this beautiful advice that you just gave, like get a PA, a good accountant, which is really useful on that side. But what it would be like your legacy look like?
Oh gosh, it's a big question. I think it'd be twofold. I think it would be the first one. I think it'd be making sure that you do good for other people and for the industry, like have impact, leave behind a path that you didn't have for people. I think that's so important. Open those doors, give people that seat at the table. Like that's so important. It's not just about us, it's about the next generation. I think with what we do with Celebrate Her, I think the future of that is all about being able to grow the next people as well. It's about, for example, we're launching Celebrate Mothers, which is it's not going to be run by me. It's going to be run by Sin Edwards. And look, I don't know. I'm not a mother now, but maybe I will be, maybe I won't. But it doesn't really matter. It's like, how do we make this industry more hospitable? Not just for mothers, for parents. But let's start with mothers, sure. It's But it is really, really it's not really about you. None of this is about, there's a bigger picture than all of us. And I think it's about how do we have impact and how do we understand the value? How do we have impact? But what we do next. And some of the ideas I have are really bad, but some of them are good. And some of them, not all of them will stick, but some of them will stick. And you know what? There will be people that will go, I can help you with that. So you've got to keep talking about it. But I think with anything that you do, is you have to have the right intention, because ego projects, people will see through it, and they might get you into one list, but they're not going to keep you in those lists, if that's what you want. And now that for me, it's, yeah, understanding what we could do for other people. And I think it's so simple, not overcomplicate it.
That's
It's
your
well,
aim, yeah. In whatever you do, it seems to be really transparent. What you're saying.
yeah, I get really
Like,
emotional about it.
it's all related to that, and it's wonderful.
Yeah.
If each of us is thinking about helping someone else,
Yeah.
everything it will be much better.
Yeah.
And brick by brick,
Yeah.
sometimes the community around us, they look at, but what does that is not going to change anything. It's a small thing, but that small thing,
Yeah, it might do.
day by day, you will get there. You just
Yeah.
said it. You got 400 people in your community.
Yeah. And you know what? And I always say, most of the good things and most of the things, say, within that community, I'm never going to know that it happened because of that community. And also, genuinely, I don't need to know and I don't want to know, because actually it doesn't matter. But through that community, and I think that's a beautiful thing, and I think that shows that this isn't being done for, an ego project. It's really being done to bring those people together and for them to benefit from that as well. And you just never know. Somebody might send one message that will reach somebody from the other side of the world, and it might change everything.
Absolutely.
And you will never know. And actually, that's the beautiful thing about it, because
Yeah, exactly.
why
You
do you-
just done it because you wanted to do it. And that's it. There is no second purpose.
no, and it's everyone's community. It really, really, truly is. And I don't know what it will look like in 6 months or a year. We've got an idea of what we want to do, but it will change with the way that the world changes. And we're so open to, diversifying it,
Adapt eventually.
it will have to adapt. It's adapted so much. I don't know what the future of it will be, but I hope the future of everything that I do with that and professionally, that it will make some difference, I think, along the way.
Okay. Well, I'm blown away from it. But I've got one last question.
Okay.
Which actually I didn't write it down. But actually, what I did, I asked ChatGPT, and I said, I'm inviting Anna Sebastian to my podcast. Which question would you like to ask her? So the ChatGPT says, if someone were to write a book about your life and career, what would you want the title to be and why?
Oh, wow. That's a good question, though. I like that question. So, okay.
ChatGPT, thank you.
So this is an interesting question, and I'm gonna answer it now, but also ask me in 5 years if you remember
Okay,
this question 5 years.
all right.
I don't know what the title fully is going to be, but it needs to be because I've just mentioned the word so much. Is about maybe having impact, and I think that I don't know, and the person that I would love to write it is one of my oldest and one of my closest best friends who's an incredible writer, and I've worked with her within this industry over the last she gave me my first job in sort of PR, and her name's Anka Franos. She's a wonderful writer, and if anybody was gonna write anything, then I would want it to be her because she just has this very magical way of bringing that emotion into her words. So that's hopefully a good enough answer for that.
Okay, okay, okay. Well, what can I say, Anna? Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for having me.
It's been a great pleasure, and you are a really good heart in what you've been saying, and who you are. Like, you really feel it. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you so much.
It's really much appreciated.